Good afternoon, dear students. Previous session, we learned something about, especially the two technological and stylistic developments. So, especially which were noticeable from 12th century. So, one thing that is about the weight of the superstructure above the doors and windows, so that was sometimes carried by the arcs. So this architectural form that was called as arcade. So regarding this we learned in this previous class. And also the second, the technological and stylistic developments during the 12th century, that is about the use of limestone cement. The use of limestone cement. See, the use of limestone cement was increasingly used in constructions during this time. So this was very high quality cement. Understood now? So this was very high quality cement, which when mixed with stone chips hardened into concrete. So this made constructions of large structure easier and as well as faster. So about all this we studied in the previous class, and also we start to learn about the building temples more. Now today's class we are going to learn about building temples, mosques and tanks. Building temples, mosques and tanks. See, temples and mosques, so they were beautifully constructed. So we all of you knows that why they were beautifully constructed. So because they were places of worship. So the temples or the mosques, so they were places of the worship for the different religious communities. So that's what the temples and the mosques were beautifully constructed. So they were also meant to demonstrate the power, wealth, devotion of the patron. Devotion of the patron. See, the first thing that the temples and mosques were beautifully constructed. So because of that, they were places of the worship. They were places of worship. Okay. And after, so these temples and mosques, so they were also meant to demonstrate the power and as well as wealth. Understood now? So the power, wealth, and even devotion to the patronage. Devotion to the patronage, or what we call the patron. Devotion to the patron. That means, see, by constructing large, beautiful temples and mosques. So that's what, there was no doubt the temples and mosques were the places of worship where the different religious community people, so they were visiting and performing their religious rituals and so on so things. So because of that, okay. And the second thing that, so these the mosques and temples were also meant of demonstrate the power of that particular king, particular dynasty, and also the wealth of the king, and also devotion of the patron. ಸೊ ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಅಂಶಗಳನ್ನ ಅವು ಟೆಂಪಲ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮಾಸ್ಕ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಸೀದಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮಂದಿರಗಳನ್ನ ನಿರ್ಮಾಣದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕಾಣ್ತೀವಿ. So one thing we can understood that is about, so those the temples, mosques and tanks, so they were actually demonstrate the power, the wealth and devotion of the piety. Devotion of the piety. So let us see one of the example, that is about Rajarajeshwara temple. Rajarajeshwara temple as an example. Understood? Rajarajeshwara temple. See, the Rajarajeshwara temple, so according to an inscription in that mention, so it was built by King Rajarajadeva. The Rajarajeshwara temple, so it was built by King Rajarajadeva. Understood now? So here Rajarajadeva, he was actually worship of his god, that is Rajarajeshwara. So the king Rajarajadeva, so he was worship his god Rajarajeshwara. See, you can imagine here, you can try to understand the similarity here, that we can notice there that. So here, the names of the king and as well as the names of the god, so both are very similar. You see, the ruler name was Rajarajadeva and the god name is also Rajarajeshwara. So one thing we need to be understood that, so here the rulers, by doing like that, so they are actually wanted to appear like a god. They wanted to, the ruler, who are be the king, chieftain, samanta, who are constructing or who are constructed, he or she wanted to appear like a god. Wanted to appear like a god. Getting these students? So here, the king took the god's name, the Rajarajadeva, the king. So he took the god's name because it was auspicious and he wanted to appear like a god. See, through the rituals of worship in the temple, one god honored another. One god honored another. Anybody, can you guess that was that one god? So the king Rajarajadeva honored another god, that is Rajarajeshwara. Got it, dear students? See, the largest temples were almost all constructed by kings, and sometimes the others. Lesser deities in the temple were gods and goddesses of the allies and subordinates of the ruler. So, ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣವಾದಂತಹ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನವನ್ನ ರಾಜ ಒಬ್ಬರೇ ನಿರ್ಮಾಣ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರಾ? ಇಲ್ಲ. So, almost ಹೇಗಿರ್ತಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, the largest temples were all constructed by kings. Getting these students? The largest temples were all constructed by kings. And the other, the lesser deities, Devanu Devategalu, others. So in the temple were gods and goddesses of the allies and subordinates of the ruler. ಉಳಿದವರು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಮಕ್ಕಳ? ಸೊ ಉಳಿದಿದ್ದನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. the subordinates of the ruler, they are made constructed the lesser deities in the temple, which are the god and goddesses. See, dear students, the temple was a miniature model of the world ruled by deities together in the royal temples. Are you getting now? So, the temple was a miniature model. It's a small model of the world ruled by the king and his allies. So, it is actually, whichever it be, the different temple. So, the temple was a miniature model of the world ruled by the king and his allies. Understood? So, as they worshipped them, deities together in the royal temples. So, whatever they were worshipped in there, so they used to construct and build only those, the temples. So it seemed as if they brought the just rule of the gods on earth. ದೇವರ ರೂಲನ್ನ ನಿಯಮವನ್ನ ಭೂಮಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾರಿಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ದಟ್ ದೇವರ ಪ್ರತಿನಿಧಿ ಇದ್ದ ಹಾಗೆ. ರಾಜ ಯಾರು? ದ ಕಿಂಗ್ ವಾಸ್ ದ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಟಿವ್ ಆಫ್ ಗಾಡ್. ಹಾಗೆ ತೋರಿಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕಿತ್ತು. ಇಟ್ ಸೀಮ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ದೇ ಬಾಟ್ ದ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ರೂಲ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಗಾಡ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ the just rule of God, of the gods on earth. Just, that's all. So it is about the temples. And what about the Islam religion and then mosque, how it's associated with, let's discuss now. See, the Muslim sultans and padshahs, the Muslim sultans and padshah. Padshah. Whether they were also like they wanted to appear like a god, how the other, the non-Muslim kings, rulers, so they were actually did the same. See here, actually dear students, the Muslim sultans and the padshahs were the head of that, so did not claim to be incarnations of God. So here, the sultans and padshahs, so they are not actually claim themselves ಏನಂತ? Incarnation of God. Incarnation of what is the meaning of this? Incarnation of God andre ಏನು ಮಕ್ಕಳಾಗಿದ್ರೆ? That means ದೇವರ ಅವತಾರ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಿಂದೂ ಅಥವಾ ರಾಜ ಪದ್ಧತಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಟೆಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಕಟ್ಟಿಸಿದಂತವರು ಅವರು ತಮ್ಮನ್ನ ದೇವರ ಅವತಾರ, ದೇವರಿಗೆ ಸಿಮಿಲರ್ ಅಂತ ತೋರಿಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ದ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ padshahs are the rulers, are the chieftains, so did not claim to be incarnation of God. But the Persian court chronicles described the sultan as the shadow of the God. The shadow of God. Getting these students? So actually, the Persian court chronicles described the Muslim sultans as the shadow of God. ಅವರು ದೇವರ ಅವತಾರ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಪರ್ಷಿಯಾದ ಇತಿಹಾಸದ ದಾಖಲೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಪದಶಾ ಅವರು ಶಾಡೋ ಆಫ್ ಗಾಡ್ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ವರ್ಣಿಸಲಾಗಿದೆ. ಅವ್ರನ್ನೇನಂತ ವರ್ಣಿಸಲಾಗಿದೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ? ದ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ padishahs, they were described as the shadow of God. Getting these students, see, and that God chose Alauddin. For example, just I would like to mention an inscription in the Kuwait al-Islam Mosque. One inscription ದೊರೆತಿದೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ. ಆ inscription ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಶಾಸನ. So this inscription, an inscription, which was actually there were no Kuwait al-Islam Mosque. Kuwait. al-Islam Mosque. ಈ ಕುವತ್ ಆಲ್ ಇಸ್ಲಾಂ ಮಾಸ್ಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ದೊರೆತಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕುವತ್ ಆಲ್ ಇಸ್ಲಾಂ ಮಾಸ್ಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಸೀದಿನಲ್ಲಿ ದೊರೆತಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಇನ್ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಷನ್ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ಡ್ ದಟ್ God chose Alauddin as a king because he had the qualities of Moses and Solomon. How beautifully it was explained. So dear students, in an inscription in the Kuwait al-Islam Mosque, that inscription explained that God chose Alauddin as a king. Why no? Because he had the qualities of Moses and Solomon, the great lawgivers of the past. The Moses and the Solomon, they were the great lawgivers of the past. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಆ ಒಂದು ಶಾಸನದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲಾವುದ್ದೀನನ್ನ ಹಾಗೆ ಹೋಲಿಕೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಾಗಿದೆ. It was the inscriptions which was in the Kuwait al-Islam Mosque. That inscription explained that God ದೇವರು ಚೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾನೆ, ದೇವರು ಅಲ್ಲಾವುದ್ದೀನನ್ನ ಆರಿಸಿ ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ದಾನೆ ರಾಜನಾಗಿ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಆತನಲ್ಲಿ ಮೋಸೆಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಸೋಲಮನಿಗೆ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿಗಳನ್ನ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ. The greatest lawgiver and architect was God himself. Here, who was the greatest lawgiver? ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನ್ಯಾಯದ ಅಧಿದೇವತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ that is God. And he was the architect of himself. The God himself, he was the architect. Like that it was explained. He created the world. Actually, who has created the world according to which are it may be the different religious mythology or myths. Explained that the whole world is created by the God. Here he created the world out of chaos and introduced order and symmetry. The God was created the world out of chaos and introduced order and symmetry. Like that it was explained. The beautiful, dear students. As each new dynasty came to power, kings wanted to emphasize their moral right to be rulers. It was common during the time. As each new dynasty came to power, kings wanted to emphasize their moral right to be rulers. Constructing places of worship provided rulers with the chance to proclaim their close relationship with God. What a beautiful sentence, yaar. Getting dear students. So constructing places of worship provided rulers. What were providing? The chance to proclaim. That was the chance to proclaim their close relationship with God. Their close relationship with God. Especially important in an age of rapid political change. Are you understanding, dear students? So especially important in an age of rapid political change, rulers tried to transform their capitals and cities into great cultural centers that brought fame to their rule and their even the realm also, or their world also, or their kingdom also, or their region also. Getting dear students? So here rulers also offered patronage to the learned and pious, and also it is an important age of rapid political changes. They are also offered patronage to the learned and pious, and tried to transform their capitals and cities into great cultural centers that brought fame to their rule and their realm also. Understood, dear students? So ಆ ಒಂದು ಕಲ್ಚರಲ್ ಸೆಂಟರ್ಗಳಿಗೆ, ಸಾಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಕ ಕೇಂದ್ರಗಳಿಗೆ ತಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಆಡಳಿತದ ರಾಜಧಾನಿಯನ್ನ, ನಗರಗಳನ್ನು ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಸೊ ಆ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಸಿದ್ಧಿಯನ್ನು ಪಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. I hope, dear students, all of you able to understood this about the same topic. I would like to continue in the next class. Thank you. Have a nice day.